industry they work for, and then we'll come back around and start the chat with you. So I'm Kate, I'm the Project Manager for Redlands Regional Jobs Committee, and I work for the Redlands Coast Chamber of Commerce as a Project Manager.
Thank you, Kate. My name is Tony Martin. I'm the Career Pathways Manager at Construction Skills Queensland. I think it's in the title. I'll be talking about all careers construction.
Thanks, Tony. I'm Sarah Woolsey. I'm the Director and Owner of Engage Care Services. I'm a nurse and a business owner, and I'll be talking about ethics community services this morning.
Thank you. I'm Michael Harris. I'm the Director of Allied Health at Bayside Health Service, so that's part of Metro South Health, public sector health here on the south side. I'm based at Redlands Hospital. So I'll be talking largely about allied health career pathways, but also happy to talk more broadly about health pathways and career opportunities, particularly those in the public sector.
Thank you to all our panellists, so thanks for your intros. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what is the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee. Have any of you heard of the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee before? I'm hoping some of you might have been here last year. Who's heard of the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee? Yep. So we are basically a government funded through the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training. We're funded at the Chamber to deliver what's called the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee. And our focus is creating local solutions around skilling, training and employment here in our region. So we do a lot of broad work around what's coming in the pipeline, what jobs are going to be existing and needed, reverse engineering training offerings to ensure that people in our region are getting skilled and trained in areas where we know there's going to be employment opportunities. So that's one of the things we do. We also have a range of different offerings, resources, things that we've created to help support both our economy in general and young people, job seekers and employers in our region. So I just wanted to point out to you, we have a range of business cards. You'll get one today. This is our Regional Jobs Committee business card, and it has 2 QR codes on it. One side is for our jobs board. So it's effectively like Seek. It's a board with lots of available jobs in the Redlands, and it's 100% free for both you as a job seeker to use the board to find jobs in the Redlands, and it's also 100% free for employers to advertise their jobs. And the reason why we've created that job board is to try and connect local people with local jobs. So do use it. It also has up there not just full-time roles, it's also got casual roles, it's also got apprenticeships, traineeships, volunteer roles. So do use it, check it regularly because it does get things added all the time. And use it as a way to connect with opportunities here to build both your skills, your income, your experience, and put you on a career path journey of interest to yourselves. On the other side of the business card is what's called our resource hub. So both of them have got QR codes that will take you straight to that section of the website. In that resource hub, there's a heap of different things that we've created, which are things like career guides, there's how to interview well, how to prepare a resume, there's a whole lot of info and resources there for you to help you on your journey. And the other thing that's in that resource guide is little videos. You'll see after panel chats like what we're doing today, and you can look at them and there'll be different industries that are featured. So there might be an industry panel chat on hospitality, there's others that are on I think what else we've done. Health, there's medical, you'll see one with doctors talking about career path into medicine. There's a whole lot of different panel chats there that you can watch in your own time and get effectively similar information to what you'll hear today, but in different industries. Through to guides where you can download the guide and you can take it to an employer to say, hey, here's an information booklet, it's a bit like a glossy brochure, to explain to an employer what they have in the way of ability to take you on as either a work experience student or a school-based traineeship or apprenticeship. And it's that info that the employer is looking for to understand what does this mean. And you can take it to the business if you find somewhere you like and say, hey, I'd really love to come do some work experience in your business. Here's some information about the process. And then if you're interested, let me know, we can connect you with our school's pathway officer to make it happen. So there's some resources there you can download, print, take with you to go find your next experience and career path option. So that's the Redlands Regional Jobs Committee, and I'll quickly give you a little update on who I am and how I've got to here. The main thing I wanted to point out, I think, sorry, I don't know your name, David, I think David was mentioning is that whatever you choose when you do first leave school, you're not locked into it forever. It's a stepping stone. Taking a well-informed step when you're first leaving school, because you've done research, you've got some experience, you've gone and tried a few different things, done work experience in 3 or 5 different roles, makes your transition out of school so much easier. Like, you're not locked into whatever you pick in that first step forever. It is literally a stepping stone. So the thing I just really wanted to highlight to you is that there's this concept of what's called linear career paths, where you kind of go, okay, I do a cert 1, then I do a cert 3, then I go here, and then I go there, and that's the linear career path in that industry. Versus a concept of non-linear career path. You might go over this way, and then you might go over there, and then you'll have to take a totally different course. And in reality, when you start talking to people about their real-life career story, so many people, they've never taken a linear career path. It's all over the place, doors open, opportunities come up, and you take them as they come, and it feels right. So don't get stuck in this, I can only go down this linear pathway. However, what is super useful is to do the research and to look at all those linear pathways and to see if you know where you want to get end goal-wise, all the little steps on how you're going to get there. What certificate courses, what qualifications, what industry-related experience, what do you need to get to that end goal where you're trying to go? But keep in mind that you might find other doors open and take you off on a different path altogether. And that's kind of how my career went. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I was finishing school. I thought I wanted to be a photographer. I was teaching darkroom photography. I was doing a whole heap of wedding photography. I was right into the photography industry. And I started getting migraines. And I went to a doctor who sent me to an ophthalmologist, and they did some scans in the back of my eye. And they told me that I had a condition which meant that my eyesight would deteriorate. And they said, don't even think of photography as a career path because you will not be able to do it for that long. I'm 20-something years out of school and I can still see fine. It's not the best in the world, but to be honest with you, I probably would have gone down the photography pathway if I had known that right now my eyesight is as good as it is. But I knew at that point at 17 that I had to choose something different because of what I was told. So I started to think, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I decided to go do a double degree at uni, and I did my degree in marine science and in Indigenous studies. From that, I graduated, went travelling for a while, and a door opened that I never thought would, if that makes sense, which was to go work in the university looking after exchange students, study abroad students, doing all their career advising, their pathways, pastoral care, all that. Loved it, but I was sick of living in a big city. So we ended up moving from Sydney up to North Stradbroke Island, and I got kind of pulled into working in the mining industry. Never thought I'd work in the mining industry, but I actually really liked it, community engagement work. Then I got into government negotiation work. Then I ended up getting a job in government. So I worked in the mining sector 6 years. I worked in government negotiations and for the government for another 4 years. Then I've moved for the last 4 years in working in 2 part-time roles, doing project management. So I took all of the government work I was doing, which is project management and economic development work, and I took that experience and moved into now effectively consulting to the Chamber of Commerce, doing similar stuff to what I was doing in government, but on a broader scale, and it's project-based, and it's amazing, and we're able to create really great stuff from nothing, find opportunities, find where are the gaps in the market, what do people need to know about, do the research, turn it into events, products, etc., etc. So it's a fantastic career that I've loved. It's taken all these different strange turns, and effectively, I'm not formally qualified in project management, but I've been able to build my skills and my knowledge to be able to get the roles. My next step in my learning journey, I think, is I probably would like to do some formal qualifications in project management, which will just effectively give me the pieces of paper and the credentials, and there's probably little gaps in my knowledge that will be beneficial for me to go back and do another uni course, if that makes sense. So that's my journey, and I don't know how many of you are at all interested in project management or any of the things I've talked about, but I might hand over to Tony, and we'll continue with the different stories and opportunities that exist for you.
Thanks, Kate. I don't really much like talking about myself, so we're going to gloss over that. I'm more interested in talking about your journeys, because you're right at the start, as Kate said. It's very important to note that where you start isn't where you finish. And the good news for you is that this is not a recruiting drive here this morning. I'm certainly not here to drag you by the ear, kicking and swinging into the construction industry. I'm here to give you an informed presentation, so hopefully you go home and have dinner table conversations tonight with parents and carers about a career in construction or in health. Whatever it turns out to be, you've got to enjoy what you do. That's so important. You've got to enjoy what you do so that when you drag yourself out of bed each morning to go to work, it's not a mission. Okay, so it's really important. So we'll get on to that later. So my journey, when I was your age, I was class captain, house captain, school captain. So you're thinking, wow, he must have went down the ATAR pathway. Look, I'm a wall and floor tiler by trade. So what happened to me was I joined the Navy in April of grade 12. They shipped me, like that, Navy, shipped me over to Perth, and I hated it from day one. I thought it was going to be this great thing. I couldn't see past the free plane flight over to Perth, so I hated it. I got out in September of grade 12, and the intention was to go back and repeat grade 12 the next year. And my dad, who, surprise, surprise, was a wall and floor tiler, said to me, well, you're not sitting on the couch until February next year to go back and do grade 12. You're coming out and working with me. So April to September, Navy, September to 25 years later, wall and floor tiler. Never got back to finish grade 12, ended up becoming a successful small business owner, and that's really important. You can just say, are you just wall and floor tiler? Yeah, I was, but I was a successful small business owner, and we're going to go into that a little bit later on this morning. At the minute, the construction industry's got a bit of a bad reputation. If you're big and strong and can lift heavy rocks, you should go out and get a trade. If you're a troublemaker at school, they'll kick you out at the end of year 10 and you go and get a trade. That's not what it is anymore. There are 70 different careers to choose from. I've already gone past my script, okay. There are 70 different careers to choose from, and hopefully we'll get into that a little bit more later on to give you an informed choice.
Thanks, Tony. I'll do something with this. Does anybody know that they want to be a nurse or help people? Has anyone got that level of clarity right now? Yeah? It's more clarity than I had. I was delivering pizzas in grade 10 and I loved it. It's great. Yeah, careers are funny things. Trying to know what's out there. What are your options? There are a million options in front of you. I didn't know for certain I wanted to be a nurse. I thought I wanted to be a police officer or a lawyer or a social worker and join the Navy. There are so many options. It's really, really overwhelming. But what you start to do is look at yourself. What's going to suit me? Do I like taking orders? And I realised that I don't really like taking orders, so joining the Navy or joining the police force is probably not going to suit me very well. But I did love helping people. And you start to tap into what you've seen around you, who have your role models been, and what is going to make you leap out of bed in the morning. And what that is in 2 years' time might be different in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. And that's okay. Your generation is going to have probably 5 careers. Whereas we go into one doorway and see one of the doorways open up. So, yeah, I had lots of jobs as a teenager. I'm the youngest of 7, and I really liked money. So I had to go out and get a job, everything from delivering papers and then delivering pizzas. Then I became a carer in aged care because I knew I wanted to do something caring. And that led into disability support and then doing my nursing degree. And you think, okay, I've done my degree, I'm done with study. Oh, guys, I'm sorry to tell you, absolutely not. I did a postgrad of intensive care and then did a teaching diploma so that I could train other nurses. And then 6 years ago decided I didn't want to be thought of as just a nurse. Oh, she's just a nurse, you will hear that. So I did my Master of Business, and I'm now a successful small business owner. So you can be an entrepreneur, and you can tie several passions in together. I really liked earning money and wanted to work hard to get that money, but I also knew that the way that filled my cup was helping other people. So really look within. What is going to float your boat? What is going to make you feel at the end of the day, after a really hard day's work, when you look back, that was a good day? Because it's not always thanks from other people or reinforcement from other people. You really need to look within to get that. So hold a mirror up, I think is the first thing in a career path. I'll hand you over to Michael.
Thank you. Firstly, I think I agree with everything that everyone has said so far. My own career path through health, I guess, has been probably more of a linear, but then within that I've done a whole range of different roles, so I'll try and touch on some of that as we go through. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do when I was your age. I came home from school one day, I had not ever thought about working, and I was told by my mother I had a job at Food for Less than Emily. She interviewed for me, and I started that night. So that was where my job career started. And then, I think through the last couple of years at school and while I was at university, did a whole heap of different jobs, working markets, service stations, childcare. I was in the Army Reserve for a while, did some landscape gardening. And I mention that because I think in every one of those jobs I picked up skills that have helped me throughout the rest of my career. So don't underestimate what you can get out of your part-time jobs, particularly those where you work with people, because so much of what we do in all of our jobs is about working with people, communicating, working in a team. So never underestimate that. I think the other thing is when I look at resumes, those people who go and study or work and other commitments as well, you always look at that and think, well, they must be pretty good at their time management or juggling priorities. So I finished school and didn't get the grades that I wanted straight away. I played sport, played cricket and rugby, and got injured in year 11 and went and saw a physio. So pretty typical pathway for people getting interested in physio sport. So I'm the Director of Allied Health now, I should mention, but my career or my qualification is a physiotherapist. So I've worked in health for a bit over 20 years now, and most of that as a physio, and then more recently I moved into, senior management roles, and now an executive manager over based at Redlands Hospital in the health service there. If I step back, finishing school, went into an arts science degree, so immediately those results that you get at the end of year 12, I think there are many ways to get into courses that you want to do down the track. And so I did still want to try and get into physio, and I did an arts science course for a year and upgraded and went into physio. Other ways that you can get into courses, probably touching on a bit later, but we have a range of entry pathways into careers in health. After that I worked clinically as a physio for many years, mostly in the public sector. I did dabble in some private practice for a while, did some sports coverage, but found out that really actually being sports physio was not what I wanted to do, and ended up specialising in intensive care. Physiotherapy, which is probably as far as you get away from sports physio as you can imagine. And then moved into more senior leadership roles. I've done project management, was involved in big builds at hospitals, so being that interface between the project teams or the construction teams and the clinical services. Have worked at universities, not as a senior lecturer, but as an assistant lecturer or a practical class sort of tutor. So a range of different other roles, clinical educator roles, so we have students that come through on placement, worked in all of those roles, eventually moved into more of a senior clinical team leader role, and then into a department director. And as I say, did some further study in health service management, and then moved into more full-time health service management roles.
Thank you, everybody. I think probably the best thing now is to basically open the floor and let you guys ask specific questions that you'd really like to hear about to any of our panelists right now. Don't be shy. Yep, great.
If you didn't get the grades you wanted, did any of you go to TAFE to try and get into the courses that you wanted in uni?
Great, so if any of us didn't get the grades that we wanted at school, did we go to TAFE to try and get into uni? That's the question, right? Yeah, cool. So I might start with that and then I'll let everyone else add their part. So I think the important thing is that the grades you get at the end of year 12 isn't the be-all and end-all. It's definitely the easiest way to get into, say, university is to do your best and to get a good grade and go straight in, but that's not the only way. You can go in through things like TAFE, do a TAFE and then upskill. You can go in and do what's called a graduate diploma at a lot of universities, which is effectively like doing the first year of a university degree. If you get a good grades in that first year, you can then apply to move into the full degree program. But at the very least, you've at least done the graduate diploma, which gives you at the end of the 1 year actual qualification or certificate. So there's different ways, and the other thing I just wanted to highlight there is you don't even have to be on an ATAR pathway to get direct entry into university. So that's something that isn't necessarily talked about a lot. Some unis offer better, what you call non-ATAR pathway entry programs than others. Griffith, for example, is one of our closest options. They have a whole heap of direct entry degrees. I think it's from memory, it's like 30-something direct entry degrees, where you can come in with what's called a VET certificate guarantee. So what that means is if you pass a certificate 3 or higher in a VET program, vocational education and training, so effectively paid for another RTO, if you literally pass a certificate 3, it's a guaranteed entry into those roughly 30 degree programs at university. And I think that's a key point, that people think that they've chosen in year 10 or 11 to go down a VET pathway, not an ATAR pathway, and they then therefore think, oh, I can't go to university because I chose to go down a VET pathway instead of an ATAR. It's not true. You can literally, at any age and any stage of your life, including straight from school, you can still go to university if that's what you want. You might not be able to go into something like medicine or physiotherapy that has very high, scores and is very competitive, but you can find a whole heap of options, and you can also get academic advice from the universities around, this is where I want to get to eventually. I want to get into physio, but I know I'm not going to get straight into it. Can you advise me on my best option? So they might say, do a vet, get in through a vet certificate pathway into an arts degree, or they might say get into the science or biomedical degree, etc., and then you've got to get good grades in the first year, if that makes sense, of studying whilst you're actually there doing it, and then you've got the ability to apply to transfer into the full degree. So there's so many ways to do it. Just the main key message for me is explore the options that are available for you. Ask for the professional advice of both universities, RTOs, your school advisors, to really give you informed information so you can make them the right choices for you.
You're so hard to follow. Everything Pat said. In the construction industry, so more good news for you folks is that it's a buyer's market at the moment. Every single industry is saying they can't find enough people. So we're not sure where you're all going after school, but they're not going to health, are they? No, but where are they going? They're not going to construction, they're not going to tourism, they're not going to hospitality. Every single industry is saying we need more new entrants. So the good news for you is that you get to choose. The other bit of good news for you is that, especially in the construction industry, the uni entry that you seem a little bit concerned about, if my grades aren't good enough to get into university. So they'll take you on as a trainee for you to get some years experience under your belt, and then you can do your degree. We've got so many people in the construction industry at the minute that are in their early to mid-20s who are doing construction management at university. We had a school out on site recently for a tri-skill day in civil construction, and we had the surveyors there, and they were flying their drones around, and the young fellow was super excited about being a surveyor. The school and the company realised that his grades weren't good enough to have direct entry into university to do the degree that he needed to do to become a surveyor. So they worked together and they signed him up into Certificate 3 civil construction. So he was a civil construction worker. He's the worker that you see out on the side of the road that you'll see when you go home tonight if you use this Cleveland Redlands Way road here, because as we all know there's a lot of roadworks happening at the minute. He did that for 12 months and they've now put him on part-time university to study. So there's plenty of opportunity, there's plenty of doors that will open for you if you show keenness and a willingness to make it happen. And that's the important thing. It has to come from you. You just have to make it happen. You do not need to go to university straight away. That's especially true for the construction industry.
Thanks, Tony. I grew up in England, in case you haven't picked up on that. So we finished school at 16. and had to go to TAFE or sixth form college to do either A-levels or a TAFE course equivalent. I did effectively a Cert 4 in social care, so that was an entry to teaching, social work, nursing, physio, all of those kind of professions that are considered very parallel professions. I didn't get the exam results I wanted. I did get enough to get into my course, but I failed maths. And as a nurse, you have to get 100% on your medication exams through your degree, which I did, thank goodness. So, not doing as well as you'd hoped is not the end of the world, absolutely not. And there's lots of different criteria to different unis as well. You look at one very prestigious uni who wants the top of the top, and their 8-hour requirements will be much higher than some other universities. You'll still pass the same degree course. You will still be seen as qualified in whatever you've done. Does it make a difference what uni you go to? Yes, your experience will be different whilst you're there, and maybe in your first job they'll look at where you did your degree. Once you've got it, I don't think people look where you did your degree. So don't be too worried about, oh, I really wanted to go to Griffith, but I'm going to have to go somewhere else. It's okay. You'll get where you want to get. It will work out. And if it doesn't, you'll think of something else. And even when it does work out, you'll still think of something else and move on to a different path. Anyway, so it's all good.
I think just on the build, I guess the upgrade pathway, there's probably no point in talking about that any further. I think that's something that we see constantly in allied health professions and an entry into the course. We also see plenty of people that have had other careers and come to an allied health profession later. So, you know, they're a lot older, and I think the strength of that sometimes is that they bring a lot of maturity, you know, and life experience into roles, so they're really sought after in those graduate years as well. So, absolutely, I think be really confident that it's not directly what you need to do straight from school. There are pathways into health from school, you know, and from TAFE and doing certificate courses. So we have in allied health, we have allied health assistants, physiotherapy assistants, social worker assistants, a whole range of roles that will go through TAFE. And then often those people will then come on board, and they might work part-time while they're studying their actual qualification at university to become a physio. They might work as a physio assistant. Is one of the pathways. Nursing is a fantastic example. So you can go through nursing careers from the, you know, complete a school-based certificate or a TAFE-based certificate, I believe. You qualify as an assistant in nursing, and you can move through that in enrolled nursing into a registered nurse, all sort of throughout school and then actually while you're working in the industry. Workforce shortages are huge in health across all of the professions that work, all of the areas. Some of the big ones, things that if you're interested in psychology, we cannot get enough psychologists, and that goes across public sector, private sector, but there are workforce shortages in health across all areas. There's so much growth in demand and investment in new services over the next 10, 15 years. You know, your chances of employment are huge, so absolutely, it's definitely a buyer's market. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, I sort of glossed over before, I talk about allied health. So in my service that I manage, there's about 120 staff, and there's about seven or eight different teams, and that's not even the half of it in terms of what we actually mean when we talk about allied health. So there's physiotherapists, occupational therapists, social work, speech pathology, pharmacists, medical imaging, music therapists, diversional therapists. There's a huge range, and they all have very different roles and different backgrounds and qualifications. So some are very much psychosocial, and others are much more of a you know, a clinical or physical base to the role. So, and all of those have their own entry requirements as well and experiences. So it's worth it really having a look at what might suit you best.
Do you have other questions?
Hang on, before we do, I made light of your question, but it's a cracking good question. And one thing that you all need to know is that you're constantly being judged. I already know that you're employable because you're planning ahead. So that question showed us that you're thinking about the future and you're thinking about your pathway. So while I made a little bit of a joke about the fact that you're worried about getting into uni, the reality is that you've gone to the top of the class already. And it's true, as potential employers, you're always being looked at. So always put your best foot forward. So something as simple as, I usually make a joke, I didn't get a chance to do it today. I've got $50 in my pocket for anybody that sits in the front row, and that $50 always stays in my pocket, because every event that I go to like this, in this sort of format, none of you sit in the front row, because none of you like putting your head up above and standing out from the crowd. It's that sort of thing that will get, feel like the $50 stays in, $50 stays in my pocket. This front row right here, I have to be very specific. Simple things like, we call them soft skills, pre-employability skills. Your ability to look somebody in the eye and say good morning will get you a gig long before any resume or any piece of paper. So just keep that in mind. So I'm contacting with you.
Really good tips, and take it in, because it can make the difference between forging a really successful career path for yourself or getting lost in the crowd. So these are really important advice and tips. So yes, sorry, there's a question over here.
It's more of a direct question. It's how did you juggle army reserves as well as a job while you were studying?
With varying degrees of success. I wouldn't pretend that I had any of that covered that well, but I think it's just about time management and prioritising your time. So when I did it well, I had a bit of a plan and a schedule, which I guess is going to be really important in the next couple of years for you all as well. So I think that's the main thing. And I've learned later in life, I think the most important thing is whatever you're doing at that point in time, you really focus on that. So being organised, and you're there and you're present in whatever you are doing, and shifting and being organised. But I wouldn't start at any of that plan. Then I did some really late nights cramming for exams at the last minute, because I had let things get out of control. But the more organised I was, and the more I had a plan, the better that worked. But it was, I guess when I was going through physio was pretty much full-time study. So I just did work around, it was 5 days a week. For most of the course, so it was just about fitting some work in the evenings or on the weekend when you when those shifts were. Same, I was in the reserve most of the time. I was doing my degree, and it was going, it was a Tuesday night, and then it was every now and then on a weekend, and a couple of weeks a year in union holidays. So just managed it that way.
I'll add to that too. If you want to do it, it's easy. So especially when it comes to learning, if you want to learn, you'll make it work. You'll make it work for you. So if you want to fit in those extracurricular activities, if you really want to do it, it's not a chore. And that's true for all of you here. You think about your own, what you're good at. And look, that might be the cello, that might be rugby league, that might be football. Whatever it is that you're good at, there's a reason that you're good at it. It's because you wanted to do it. So learning becomes secondary then. So it's true. If you want to juggle all those commitments because you're keen and you're motivated and you can see the end goal, then it's not an issue. You will just make it work. But as soon as it starts to become a chore, you'll think to yourself, oh, I really don't want to do this, and then that's when it becomes tough. So it leads back to the make sure you make the right decision.
Absolutely. In terms of that, picking what you're going to do, who here is still unsure, considering what they might want to do? Just show of hands, still unsure? Yeah, cool. And who here knows exactly where they want to go? Yeah, see, that half-half. And that is totally okay. You have the rest of your life ahead of you. What I would highly recommend is spending the time now really looking into options. And one of the best things, I did touch on this before, is going and getting first-hand experience. So that first-hand experience you can achieve that in a range of ways. You can get a locked-in kind of proof through the school work experience placement at a few different places. Try out 3, 5, whatever it might be, different careers that you're considering. Literally just go and door knock at businesses and say, this is who I am, be confident, introduce yourself. This is who I am, this is what I'm thinking about for my career. Could I come and do a couple of days of work experience? At the end of the day, you spent 3 days maybe of your life figuring out if it is something that you really like, or if you go, worst case scenario, actually I really don't like that, but I'm glad that I spent 3 days of my life figuring highly recommend things like work experience can be a really good way to nut out what you like and what you don't like. The other way to get it is through paid employment. Just got to start working in an industry that you like. Again, just ask to start at the bottom. Can I come and work in your law firm and sort the mail, or whatever it might be, or I want to work in your hairdressing salon and I'll just come in and clean the floors. Just get started in the industry if you're considering it. Look for employment. Or the third way is to volunteer. And it might be that you actually go to a community group or a non-for-profit organisation or something, and you say, I'm really invested in what you do. Saving koalas is my thing. I really want to get involved in that. Can I come and volunteer my time? And just be around people who have more experience and skills in that sector than you do, and get involved, get passionate about something that you like doing, and find ways to build your skills and your experience. And if you are, as Tony said, if you're passionate about something, you will thrive in that. But if you go for something that you really don't like, for example, a lot of young ones who here pack shelves at Woolies or a supermarket of some variety. Yeah, do you love it?
Yeah, it's good.
That's good.
Just the people that I work with.
Fantastic. So you found a way to find something and you like aspects of the job. In life, whatever you do, you're never going to love 100% of it. But if you can find something that you love at least 70% of how much you put into that job, or 70% of the time you spend there, you love, then you're doing well. So look for those things. Figure out what you like doing. Figure out what gives you energy versus what drains you of energy. Things that drain you when you feel exhausted, don't choose a career down that path. Choose one where the things that you're doing are giving you like vibrance and energy, and you're feeling good about yourself and you're feeling good about what you're doing. If you can find things that are like that, that's the direction to head in. So for example, Sarah identified that she liked helping people, caring and helping were things that she got a lot of energy out of. So she knew that was an area she wanted to work in. Whereas I'm not so great at that caring and helping. I'm a little bit like, as my husband would say, a cold fish who says, suck it up, you've cut yourself, put a band-aid on it, keep moving on. I would be a terrible carer. So find those things that you are good at and that you enjoy doing and gravitate to that. Do you have any other questions from people?
So that was around, if you're looking at medicine, nursing, something like that, but you're really focused on patient care, are you better off just becoming a nurse? See, I said we would see she's just a nurse, and that's why I did a master's degree in business, because I'm just a nurse. I wear so many hats, from social worker, psychologist, discharge planner, wound care person, supporting your colleagues, and camaraderie is a really important thing. I think that's why I love the pizza delivery job. The thing with any profession, the more qualified and skilled you become, often the further away from the coalface, the actual work you become. I'm sure Michael will agree, as an executive director at the hospital, he's not doing much physio work. No, and I'm not doing much nursing. So it's really about, once you're in that role, where does that take you? And it doesn't have to take you anywhere. It can stay being that face-to-face person. And I'm sure if you do a medical degree and you become a general practitioner, you spend every day with a patient in front of you. Whereas there are some roles that will take you further away from your patients. Doctors have quite a luxurious role in that they do stay quite close to their patients. They have other people that do their administration. Whereas nursing, you end up kind of coordinating other people doing the jobs, and support workers, care assistants, other people actually delivering that care, and you're just making sure that it's all happening. So within each profession, no matter what that is, there are options as to where that takes you, whether it is nursing and staying with patient care, but even in medicine, you can stay with patient care as well. It's really a write your own adventure, and I know you would hear it 100 times, the world is your oyster. Can't stress enough how true that is. You can be whatever you want to be. You really need to look within and go, what do I want to be? What type of thing do I want to do? And some of the jobs you get as a teenager just help solidify, these are things that I do not want to do. You know, I'm doing it to pay for petrol and pay for my driving lessons and all the rest of it, but I know that I don't want to wake up in 20 years and I'm still doing what I'm doing right now. So any job will bring you a vast array of skills to take forward into a career, but they'll also solidify the things you love and the things you don't love too.
Yeah, agree with all of that. I think when you look at health, whether it's nursing, medical, or the other health professions and the admin, there is an element in all that everything is about, the patients, or what we call person-centered care or consumer-focused care. But there are so many different roles, and so you've got health management roles. You could be an educator, a health promoter, health prevention, advocacy, clinicians, clinician leaders. There's such a range of opportunities and roles, or some for project roles. So your level of sort of direct clinical care will change. I agree with everything we said before. I think though the world needs doctors that are incredibly patient-focused and person-centered as well. So if you head down that path, never lose sight of that. And the one thing I would say with the medical career path is that I think that needs to still be the driver. It is an incredibly hard pathway and a challenging pathway, and so you need that purpose to be really clear. And I think you should be, if you're heading down that path, you should be really confident that it's about the patients and delivering care.
Yeah, I think some of us that went into nursing realised that medicine was 60 to 80 hours a week, and maybe 40 hours is enough.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Now's your chance. Anything? We've got some more comments. Here we go.
I've got a question for you. Can anybody tell me what a dogger does? A what? That's the number one response. A what? What does a dogger do?
A dogman?
A dogman, yeah.
Yeah, a crane. He moves the stuff around with a crane.
Congratulations, you're the first student that's got that right in, I'd say, about 18 months. For the rest of you, when you woke up this morning, you had no clue that there was a career in the construction industry known as a dogger. So how can you make an informed decision about what it is that you want to be when you grow up if you don't even know that that career exists? So that's what today is all about. Today is all about learning that there are so many career opportunities out there for you, but you just have to decide what it is for you. We've got 70 different careers in construction, so this is going to be a little construction specific for the next couple of minutes because that's what I do. I was on the site, the new shopping centre up here, Panorama Drive and Paradise Gardens. There was a dogger on that construction site, and the site supervisor told me that that dogger was currently on $120 an hour. $120 an hour. Now, I like that figure because it's very easily divisible by minutes. 60 minutes in an hour, $120 an hour. The dogger earns $2 a minute. So in the time it's taken me to tell you about it, he's on site earning $10. So there's a really good opportunity in the construction industry for you to make some seriously good point, because it's all about supply and demand. Ladies, I am talking to you just as much as I am the fellas. In fact, if you are a female, you are more likely to be employed in the civil construction industry driving the big boxes, the big dump trucks. They prefer to employ females for a very simple reason. The fellas only know two speeds, fast and slow. The ladies actually treat machines with a little bit more respect, therefore less maintenance, so hopefully the company makes more money. So we're definitely talking to the ladies. We are talking to the ATAR pathway students as well. If you think that perhaps sitting in an air-conditioned office in front of a laptop is more your gig, you could consider an estimator, an architect, or even an interior design. I've got some brochures kicking around. At the end of the lesson, if you'd like to know some more information about the 70 different careers in construction, I recommend that you take one of those. There is a common theme, and I'll tie back into the rest of this now, it is about that whole try before you buy thing. A statistic that's a little frightening in the construction industry at the moment is that 50% of apprentices that sign up to a trade in the building construction industry quit within the first 12 to 18 months. Now that's a little scary, so for dramatic effect. If you and you both get an apprenticeship in the construction industry, our statistics guarantee that one of you will end up flipping burgers or pushing poles. Who is it? Who's going to be? It's going to be you. There's the wrong answer. You're supposed to point to him, and he's supposed to point to you. All right? Now, look, I don't have a problem with burger flipping and trolley pushing, but I do have a problem with putting yourselves, your parents, your carers, your employers, through all that heartache and misery of signing up to an apprenticeship to then discover that you don't like it. Discover while you're at school, and it's costing you nothing but your time. And you do that in the form of work experience, and that's true across every industry. You go and you do some work experience with tourism, with hospitality, with health. You come home at the end of the week, and one or two things can happen. You're going to like it, and you want more, which is great, you're on a winner. You're thinking to yourself, hang on man, this isn't all that it was cracked up to be. I don't think I really want to do this. That's great. You cross it off your list, and then you move on to the next thing. And crossing it off your list is actually a win for you, and it's a win for us, because in the construction industry, you won't be one of those going to apprentices that quit within the first 12 to 18 months. Make an informed decision, and that's what today's all about, making informed choices.
So we'll get your question one sec. I just wanted to add to that. So this concept that Tony was mentioning, the construction career pathways, fantastic resources. Do go to their website in addition to the notes on the back of all the different types of jobs that are available in construction. Go and have a look, and there's so many resources there. There's jobs guides, it's got explanation about what each job is, it's got pay guides, it's got all sorts of things, what pathway you take, what entry program. There's so much level of detail. And what I wanted to highlight is that just about every industry has something similar to this. So if you, particularly things like health, if you Google, literally just Google things like careers in health information or health careers pathways guide. Just start Googling things and spend a bit of time. If you're like, I've got half an hour before I've got to do such and such, I'm just going to spend that 30 minutes just doing a little bit of a Google. You can find out so much information, and I do suggest search by industry, because when you search just careers, there are great resources and things like My Careers, Future Careers. There's a whole heap of things, and I can send some to Julie, some links to some really good resources. They're great and they're very high level and broad in general, but if you know that you really want to go into a certain type of industry, like health, like community services, or like construction, go and Google specific to that industry resources, guidelines, advice, and you will find all this stuff that other people have spent a lot of time creating that makes it a lot easier for you to then access that information and make, as Tony said, an informed choices. So yes, sorry, your question. Is it worth graduating? You're talking about year 12? My suggestion for that is absolutely. It really does come down to what you want to do after school, but I can tell you right now that a lot of employers, I work across a lot of businesses in terms of guidance, advice, what they're looking for. What Tony mentioned is absolutely 100% true. Right now, you have never in history had a better time to really get the career path that you want, because there are so many available jobs right now, and every industry is struggling to find people. That doesn't mean finish school early, jump out the door with low to no skills, and you're going to have a great career in life. What it means is there is options there, but also there are so many things like fee-free TAFE. There is fee-free TAFE for so many different pathways at the moment, which have to have finished school, etc. And they're in the key growth and demand sectors. So what I would highly recommend is don't just jump ship and walk out the door. I think that would be a silly decision unless you really mapped out exactly what you're going into and you've talked to some really good experts, particularly your staff at your school. I would not recommend anybody leave school prior to year 12 because it does limit your options and it makes your next steps post-school a lot more tricky. A lot of employers will say straight out, minimum for me taking you on is that you've got a grade 12 certificate qualification. Not every employer, not every industry, but you're basically just, you're putting things in your toolkit as you go. One of the things that you can put in your toolkit is a grade 12 qualification, or a QCE. And that QCE can be through a vet pathway, it can be through an ATAP pathway, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you've got a Queensland Certificate of Education. That will sit you in good stead for anything you go and do into the future, but it's not the be-all and end-all. You don't have to have that, but you will find that it's trickier to get ahead if you don't, if that makes sense.
Oh, man, you're wanting to add something to that. Is it worth graduating? I think that was your exact question. Is it worth graduating? There's so many things that brings up. Back in my day, it was a given that if you were going to be a tradie working in the construction industry, you left school in grade 10. What it does is it puts all your eggs in one basket. Now, we're probably all familiar with the 20-something tradie that is always complaining about the industry, hasn't got a lot of work on, and they end up, by the time they're 30, they hate the world. Because they made a mistake back in grade 10 because they hated school, they didn't get along well with the teacher, they would do anything that it would take to leave that school environment and go and get a job, and that's the point. The job didn't really matter. The carrot was getting out of school. Is it worth graduating? 100% yes it is, and this is coming from the construction industry now, because what it shows potential employers is that you're willing to stick to it, right? They're the 12 easiest years of your life, folks, okay? You may not realise that now because you're at school experiencing it, right? But the reality is it doesn't get easier. So yes, it is very much worthwhile staying at school to the end of grade 12 to keep your options open so you don't be a cranky young man by the time you're 30 hating the world.
So I just want to add to that, there are a lot of industries that typically take people from year 10 who are now making their benchmark entry level into apprenticeships, for example. You have to be a minimum of 18 years old, or you have to have done certain pathways, etc. So for example, electrical, they literally will not take people under 18, and they want you to have finished year 12. And the competitiveness in the electrical industry is very, very high to get into the Energetic State Apprenticeship Program. And effectively, if you haven't finished year 12, they're not even going to look at you, let alone consider you in the interview rounds. So it has moved, even things like construction, as Tony said, back in the day it was, oh, leave school in year 10. Now that expectation of leave school in year 10 and go into a trade is becoming slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. It's not 100% gone, but I do highly advise and recommend, do not underestimate the benefits of adding to your toolkit a year 12 qualification.
There are exceptions to the rule. If you're going to go and pick up an apprenticeship with dad or uncle Bob or your brother, that's fine. But if you leave school at the end of grade 10 and you go into the construction industry, employers are less likely to hire you for the simple fact that the industry is transient. We move from job to job. If you don't have a license for another 2 years, then any employer that takes you on is committed to also being your Uber driver until you can get a license. So you're narrowing down your options. So just to be clear, I'm not saying you can't do it and you shouldn't. There's horses for courses, and there are some students who probably would benefit from leaving school at the end of grade 10. We all know who they are. By and large, if I've got my dad hat on, my employer hat, my CSQ hat, the advice is to finish grade 12 and start your, maybe pick up do some work experience in grade 11, get in with an employer by grade 12, pick up a school-based apprenticeship by about middle of grade 12. That way you can go to schoolies in the Christmas holidays knowing that you're going to roll over into a full-time apprenticeship. Very passionate about this. It's a cracking good question.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's no rush. You're going to work till you're 67. You can wait to get started till you're 18. It's okay, there's no rush. And what school buys you and what education buys you is choices. If you want the free choice to choose your life, you need an education and you need skills in that toolbox. You need resilience and some street smarts because it will buy you choices. Otherwise you'll find yourself working because you have to. and not having those choices. So that's what this is all about for each individual. You know, your teachers are here to support you, but it's all about you and your choices and what you choose moving forward.
No, I don't really have anything to add. I agree with everything that's said. I imagine there's different pathways for year 11 and year 12 in terms of what you study. I suppose that I can't comment on that. I just agree with the comments.
Any more questions? Yes, great.
What does work experience entail, like apart from finding out what you do like and what you don't like and finding skills along the way? What do you kind of do through work experience and how do you get into it?
Great. So what do you do in work experience and how do you get into it? Great question. So, Julie might be able to explain how work experience is done here at the school, but typically work experience is effectively, it's a bit of a contract between you, the employer who's going to take you on, and the school, signing off to state that you're doing what's called school-approved work experience. And that way then, the benefit of that is that then you're covered by the school's insurances when you go out into the business. So the business doesn't have to take on the risk of, if you got injured or something went wrong at the business when you're doing work experience, they're the ones liable and it's an extra headache and all those hassles. So this is what happens when you're at school and you go and ask for work experience versus if you finish school and you go and ask for work experience. So this is one of the major issues, is that a lot of people wait till they finish school and they get to like January after they've finished school in, you know, November, etc. And they say, oh, now I need to go and get some work experience or figure out what I want to do. They'll go try and get work experience, but the businesses will say, sorry, it's too much of a liability, I can't offer you anything. If you had it come when you were at school and you did it through school, when it's effectively a signed document where the school supports your work experience placement and therefore you're covered for all those insurances, the business says, I would have taken you on then. So really the benefit of doing it, taking this option, whilst what Tony said, doesn't cost you anything. All it costs you is your time to go and find out, do you like it? So that's literally the benefit, and work with Jolene and the school to find your, yeah.
All these questions you've been asking today, after this session, this is what we're looking at. So we were looking at work experience, how to do it, we're looking at the uni stuff, the vet stuff. So these are great questions, don't forget about them. Okay, so don't want to ask them now, ask them later. This is exactly what we're going to be talking about.
Fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. And you'll get the specifics for your school, so that's really important too. So that's kind of how you get work experience. Generally, hustle. Figure out what you like, where you think you like. Look at businesses, Google them. When you're out and about, look at them. Go and ask if there's an option to do some work experience. And be flexible. They might say, oh, we can take you 1 day a week for 5 weeks or something. Or they might say, we can take you for 5 days straight. Or they might say, come in your school holidays, or come a couple of afternoons a week for the whole of term 3. Be flexible in what the business can manage, if that makes sense. And effectively, there's no minimum or maximum length of time in a sense, other than 30 days from the school's perspective that you're allowed to do, if that makes sense. So you can break that 30 days into maybe go experience 3, 10 days. You could do 6, 5-day placements, etc., etc., etc. And have it hosted and coordinated at a school level, if that makes sense. And then you've tested the waters and a whole heap of things, and really all it's cost you is a few days here, a few days there, a few days there of your life. And you've effectively built your skills. You've got, therefore, on your resume, a whole heap of extra things that you otherwise never would have had, in addition to actually the internal knowledge of whether that was something you liked or didn't like. And the other part of getting work experience, we have created up on our, I mentioned it earlier, up on our RJC website, so on that resources link, there's a link to an employer guide. So you can take that, you can print it, download it and print it, take it into businesses, explain to them this is what work experience is. It also talks about school-based traineeships and apprenticeships. It explains to the employer what they are. And then if they say, yeah, you know, we could consider this, I would highly recommend do work experience first before you lock yourself into a school-based traineeship or apprenticeship, which is going to last you 1 to 2 years. Or if it's an apprenticeship, it will convert to a full apprenticeship at the end of the school base. So you're locking yourself into effectively 3, maybe 4 years of your life. So work experience is the step that tells you whether you like it enough to commit yourself to the school-based traineeship or apprenticeship. So use those opportunities that exist. They're there, they're funded, they've got insurances, all that stuff to do the step-by-step approach. And then in terms of what you actually do when you're at work experience, that really comes down to the employer employer that you're hosted with, figuring out how to make a meaningful work experience placement for you. So basically, they will figure out what they've got to offer, and it's a bit of a negotiation. I think the best way is if you, as a young person, sort of are upfront with them, what you're really thinking you might want to do, what you'd like to get a bit of exposure to, why you've approached their business, because you've obviously seen something in their business that you like. Give them upfront that information, and they'll be able to then go, oh, okay, maybe whilst you're here on this work experience placement, we might put you with this person. You'll get to see how the account system works in our small business. Whilst you're here, we'll put you with this other person who's on the design floor, and you get that experience. We'll do one day, and they can kind of then structure what that work placement looks like for you. But it'll be as good as the information you give them in the first instance, and then it'll be up to them to figure out what works for their business. And also on our website, in addition to that employer resource, we've actually created a few other documents that support work experience and school traineeships. One of them is a template. It's a week planner, and it gives businesses a chance to kind of look, okay, if we take this student on for work experience, how do we actually host them? What do we actually do with them when they turn up on day one? What do we do with them through the week? So it's broken down into 1 hour slots with some suggested recommendations that they can then edit themselves. So it seems like when you turn up on your first day of work experience for that first hour, how about the employer actually give the student a bit of a walk around the business, show you, orientate you, show you where the kitchen is, all that stuff, so you actually feel welcomed and all that sort of thing. And then as you go through the day, like it sort of explains in a bit of a template, a bit of a guide to how an employer might be able to host a work experience student and make it meaningful. The last thing you want is to go and I did my first ever work experience placement when I was in year 10 at a restaurant, and I literally got told, there's the freezer with, I think from memory, it was about 200 kilos of boxed up squid, and your job is to pull all the guts out and basically sort the squid for 200 kilos. I'd never done it in my life, and by the end of the day my hands were frozen and I had cuts everywhere, and literally I was just used effectively like an extra resource to do the jobs that nobody wanted to do. That's all I got to do for several days. And so, you know, you learn from that as you get older, but don't necessarily let that happen to you, where you're doing jobs that aren't necessarily giving you what's really the intention of work experience, which is a bit of a broad exposure and a bit of a try before you buy, as Tony was mentioning earlier.
That bit about the squid, that comes down to employer education, and we certainly don't want you doing that. However, there is a misconception at the moment amongst Year 12s especially, to the point where one of the schools I work with got me out to talk specifically to the Year 12 cohort about the expectations of work experience versus reality of work experience. No student at this particular school wanted to do work experience because they expected to be paid for it. Work experience is not paid work for a myriad of reasons, the most important being that if you get paid to do work experience, it makes the insurance policy that we signed when you did the work placement null and void, and it opens up a whole new can of worms around occupational health and safety, workers' compensation, accident and sickness, blah, 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 blah. The reality though, the employers are doing you a favour by opening up their workplace to you so that you can make an informed decision about what it is that you want to be when you grow up. If your expectation is that they pay you, what are your skills? What are your qualifications to get paid while you were there? And if they're going to pay a Year 12 student, 11 or 10 student while on work experience, as an employer, wouldn't I be better off going to a labour hire company and paying that person to do the work that you're going to do? So there's a balancing act there, because we don't want you unpacking 200 boxes of squid for 5 days straight. That's not the intent of work experience. The intention of work experience is for you to shadow the person and ask them questions. The only dumb question is the one that you don't ask. So that at the end of the 5 days work experience, you've come home and you've made a decision about your career pathway. The other bit of advice I'll give you on finding work experience is don't get mum to do it. Mums mean well, they want you to get a job and get you out of there as quickly as possible. The reality is though, if mum makes the call, the person on the other end has made up their mind about you before mum's finished her first sentence. And it's really simple. If you can't communicate on the phone, you can't communicate on the job site, you're a safety risk, you're not ready to go out to work yet. Don't get mum to make the call. Use mum to get your spiel down right, because we know that you much prefer to communicate with your thumbs than with your voice. So it's actually a challenge for you to look somebody in the eye and say, "G'day, I'm Tony from Faith Lutheran and I really want to be a carpenter. Do you have any work experience for me?" And that's the other trick. Are we still on a lot of thunder from the next session? That's the other trick. Don't walk up to a stranger and ask them for a job. Don't mention the A word in the construction industry. Don't put your hand out and say, "Can I have an apprenticeship?" Because they're going to say no. They don't know you from a bar of soap. But if you go up to that same person and offer them something for nothing in the form of work experience, they're going, "Hang on, what's this all about?" A young person offering up their time for nothing, they're more inclined to give you a go. So it's all about how you can present yourself. And I'm very happy to work with the school at a later date to come back and talk about tips and tricks on finding work experience. When you get it, use it as a job interview. The one thing I can guarantee you, after you've completed your work experience and you come back to school, the people out on site, when they're sitting down having smoko, they're talking about the quality of the work experience student from Faith Lutheran. Were they on time? Were they dressed properly? Could they communicate? Could they follow basic instructions? That sort of thing is gold. That will get you a gig long before any piece of paper. I'm sure it's true in your industries as well.
I've got 4 TAFE students working at Engaged Care at the moment, and I had 3 TAFE students, so they're all doing sensory and individual support, so they need to do 120 hours of placement through TAFE. The last 3 students I took on work experience, I employed all of them. Of these 4, this is their 3rd week. One of them will definitely not be getting a job because all he's done is play on his phone. So it really is an opportunity to try before you buy, go and see how this employer treats their staff, go and work with the staff, shadow what they do. You shouldn't be treated as a free employee. My students are supernumerary, so they're working alongside a qualified worker who does the majority of the work, shows them how to do things, and then will allocate some tasks that student can do, and hopefully over that 4 weeks build their skill. And the other thing we look at is, what is your criteria for this placement? What do you need to get out of it? And how do we make sure that we fit that in the hours that you're with us? So it really is a two-way street. The employer should be doing the right thing and saying, okay, what do we need to achieve for you? But also, as the work placement person, you are on a trial, absolutely, and can get successful employment out of it, or be discounted out of it as well. The other thing I'll say about the mum thing, I'd see all the time people putting on those Facebook groups, my son's looking for a job, my daughter wants to get into support work. Absolutely, I'm never ever going to contact you. And a resume is not enough to get a job. I do want a cover letter, even if it's a short paragraph about why you're interested in this job. Don't exclude the cover letter. It will stop you getting shortlisted if you don't put it in.
Yeah, but I think that the work experience, I agree with everything that was said about making the most of those opportunities. And then those habits, I think it's the same for your part-time jobs, and it's the same when you come on placement later down the track. And it's the same in all of those processes. If you're on a placement in my physio department, then that's a trial for a role there as well. So it goes all the way through, I guess, all of those experiences. And the other thing about all of those to always keep in mind is the positive impact you have, but also it's about the experiences you gain, but you're also accruing referees. So nobody's going to hire you without going back to your previous employers and asking all your previous work experience, placement provider or your clinical education placement provider, and getting a reference about you. So, the students that stick out in any of those experiences and the strong references, that's a key part for getting the next job, whatever that is, whether it's the next part-time job or it's a job in a physiotherapy department. So I think, keep that in mind as you go.
We could go on like that, but how much more time have we got? I just need to ram home a point that Michael said about the references. If you've got a part-time job and you use your supervisor or your manager as a referee, make sure you let them know. Make sure you tell them that that's what you're doing. And make sure you've got a good enough relationship with your manager, supervisor, to ensure that they give you a glowing reference. The reason why I say that is I had some feedback from an employer very recently where a young person applied for a position and put down his supervisor as a referee. The employer phoned up the supervisor, and the supervisor did absolutely nothing but bag that student for being lazy, for being cheeky, for being on his phone all the time. And that referee cost that student the opportunity for an interview because they got crossed off the list straight away. Do your homework, people. Don't just put names down as referees because you think you have to. Make it work for you. If your teacher's going to give you a bad reference, don't include them.
Absolutely. You just reminded me, in addition to the downloadable guide on our website to show employers what it's all about, we also have another downloadable thing that I forgot to mention, which is called a student placement booklet. And effectively it's there for work experience to be able to guide you. It allows you sort of guided way with your employer to write down the things that you've done, the tasks you've done on day one, the things that you would like to get more experience with, etc., etc. So guided through 5-day sort of placement, and it has a few key questions and tips and things through the document. And the very last page of it is a simple way, on one pager, it's already got like fancy little pictures and borders around it, make it look nice, and then you can give it to your employer that you've done the 5 days, for example, work experience with, and you can ask them to just literally handwrite you a reference right there in that page. And then you can then photocopy that and attach it to any future resumes, any other job you go for. You can literally take that one pager that hasn't taken too long with that person who you've done work experience with to write you a reference right there in that document that you've used through the week of work experience. And literally it's a piece of paper that you can use forevermore. I don't still use the references that I got given when I was doing work experience at school, but I did use it for the first few years of me leaving school. They gave me written references, and I actually attached it at the end of my resume. And the reason why I did that was because in those letters of support that they wrote for me, it said stuff like, Kate contacted me out of her own free will. She liked my photography practice, I'll go back to this whole story, and she identified that I was in her area of interest, so she took the initiative to contact me even though the business is in Melbourne, and she organised a plan to come down, and I did a work experience in Melbourne for a week. That impressed that employer so much that, and I'm going to say the family, etc., that they then gave me so much opportunity. I got to do so many things that she said, I couldn't let you leave at the end of that 1 week without giving you a written reference. That what she wrote in there about all my initiative and my ability to like drive my own future and all that stuff, I have no doubt is part of what helped me to get the next gig, the next job, the next everything. So all those little things that you do can set you apart and can change the course of your direction.
Was there another question? Did I see anything back to that? No? Yeah.
To be honest, I haven't supported any students doing the Cert 2. I don't know if you have, Michael. The Cert 3 and Cert 4 are definitely 120 hours.
I think maybe there's probably a couple of roles in some of the assistant type roles where if you were committed to completing the Cert 3, had done the Cert 2, you might be able to come on board and then you'd still want to be in the process of completing another.
And I'd be very happy to take any school-based students if anyone's interested in disability support work or administration. We do have an office, even someone looking at digital media, marketing, newsletters, all of that kind of stuff. So there are ways, even if it's not part of a course, to reach out to this community. The Redlands is full of really entrepreneurial business owners that actually want to support Redlanders and students here. We don't want you all going in the city or moving to Sydney. But we know that that's what a lot of you will do. If we can keep some of you in the Redlands, we absolutely want to. So do reach out to local employers. If you see a company doing things that you're really interested in, send them an email. Because for most of us, it's like music to our ears that someone is actually interested in what we're doing.
Thanks, Sarah. I was just going to say that whole, drive your career path, send them an email. If you haven't got luck with an email, follow them up. Give them 2 weeks to respond. Follow them up with maybe a second email. If you haven't got any luck to that, maybe either pick up the phone or go in there and just restate your interest. Because I can guarantee you employers are interested, but they're also so busy it's not funny. And so if you show that extra level of interest and motivation, it might be the difference between them pressing delete on the email or getting an outcome.
There's a little bit of disconnect at the minute between school students and industry. I've got a foot in both camps, so I actually work for the construction industry, not government. And industry is telling us that they can't find any new entrants. Now, when I go into the school environment, schools are telling me that they can't find any employers. So somewhere something's not working. I just heard a local employer offer you students work experience. I wonder if anything will come of that. There's a penchant amongst school students to sit back and wait for it to be offered to you. Now that is a mistake. That is a mistake. You have to go out and get it. It has to come from you. Employers do not advertise, by and large, except maybe on the RJC job board, for work experience, because it's just not on their radar. They're very reactive to their current workload rather than proactive and planning ahead. So the first step has to come from you. And if you can show that you're keen, enthusiastic, and willing to take instruction, you'll go very, very far. You just need to be able to work out a way to stand out from the crowd. And it can be something as simple as approaching Sarah after this. Hey, you said that there was an opportunity for work experience. I'm keen to follow that up. The challenge for you is that you have to do that verbally. You have to look Sarah in the eye. You can't send her a text. You can't get on Snapchat and click her a quick. Well, you could. So just to put that into a real context for you, because everything I say has proof. I was on a Hutchinson Buildings construction site in Toronto recently, and the site supervisor was telling me about the young work experience student who made a point of every morning for the 5 days that he was there, before he sat down for morning tea, for smoko, as they say on the construction site, he went round to every subcontractor's toolbox and grabbed all the things that they use that needed charging. Drills, circular saws, radios, and he put every single person's battery on charge before he sat down. He went back to school. On the Monday, when he was back at school, without fail, everybody was whinging about, where's little Johnny? We've got to charge our own stuff up now. It was something as simple as that that made him stand out from the crowd. And I said to the supervisor, so, who's going to employ him? And he said, everybody. He had the option of being a plumber, a sparky, a cabinet maker, whoever was on site at the time. He made himself indispensable to them while he was on site by something as simple as charging up their power packs for them before he sat down to smoke it. It really is that easy, isn't it?
Yeah, if you can have a happy, helpful approach in anything that you do, you will go much, much further than reluctant and grumpy. Because who wants to hang out with people like that?
That's a great way to finish up. Happy and helpful versus reluctant and grumpy. And if you pick the right thing that makes you feel happy and helpful, want to help, then effectively you're on a winner for a career.